Carol Elizabeth Gibbs, you stand indicted in that you, on the 16th of July, 1978, stole and unlawfully carried away Michelle Jean Tate against the will of her father, Keith Tate. How say you? Are you guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Mr. Justice Galbraith presides in the case of the Queen against Carol Gibbs.
Call Mr. Trevor Deakons.
Mr. Lee appears for Miss Gibbs. Prosecuting for the Queen is Mrs. Forrest. The case you are about to see is a fictional one, but the jury is selected from members of the public whose names appear in the electoral register.
You are Trevor Patrick Deakons, residing at 15 Brickfield Flats, Forchester.
Yes.
And you are employed by Forchester Council as commissionaire in the reception area to the Forchester Magistrates' Court.
Yes.
And you were performing these duties on the day of the alleged offence?
I was, yes.
Would you now tell the court exactly what occurred that morning?
I was sitting at my desk at 11:30 thereabouts when this couple come out of the clerk's office.
Yes.
They had a young baby with them. They asked me if I could find them a taxi. I said that there was a rank around the corner and I couldn't leave my post. The man went off and I directed the woman and baby to a seat just close to the main entrance.
What happened then?
Well, the baby was crying.
And?
The woman seemed agitated. There was one or two people about and she seemed embarrassed at the noise the baby was making. So she went and stood on the steps outside.
Outside the main entrance, is this?
Yes.
And you could see her standing there?
Yes. The doors are glass ones, revolving. I could see her through them.
What happened then?
Well, I was attending to another case at my desk when I heard this ruckus.
Ruckus?
Shouting. I heard shouting, my lord. I looked up and I saw a girl pulling the baby from her arms.
Pulling?
Grabbing at it.
And what did you do?
Well, I went out to see what was going on.
You actually went outside?
Yes. But when I got there, the girl was running off with the baby. The woman was standing on the steps screaming. Just standing there screaming.
Screaming what?
No. No, no. Just like that, over and over.
This girl, the one you alleged took the baby, do you see her in court?
Yes.
Identify her, please. Carry on, Mr. Deakons. What happened next?
Well, it all happened so quickly. I called for someone to go for the police and I set off after the girl. But when I rounded the corner, she'd gone.
What happened then?
I've come back, my lord.
To the court, is this?
Yes. The woman was in a dreadful state, crying and, a really dreadful state. So I gave her a glass of water, and after a few moments, the husband returned with the taxi, and we told him what had happened, and then the police came.
Well, what was the husband's reaction when you told him?
Angry?
You are asking us, Mr. Deakons?
Angry.
Not shocked? Surprised?
No, more angry than anything else.
Angry at whom?
At you, his wife, the world in general. To whom was this anger directed?
Well, at the girl. The one that had run off with the baby.
Well, did you gather from that that he knew her, knew who she was?
That was the impression I got. The impression he gave.
Why? Did he refer to her by name?
He said, that bitch Carol, something like that.
Thank you, Mr. Deakons.
You've used the word impression, Mr. Deakons. Do you consider yourself to be good at that? Drawing accurate conclusions about people, getting a good impression of them?
Average.
So, when Mrs. Tate, the woman, was trying to placate the baby, what impression did you have?
Well, nervous, like I say, on account of the noise it was making.
It seemed to upset her, the baby crying?
Yes.
Mr. Deakons, I understand as part of your job you keep a log of cases to be held on a particular day and a list of appointments.
That's right.
You know, then, why Mr. and Mrs. Tate were attending the magistrate's court that day?
It was to do with an application about the custody or adoption of a child.
In the past, there have been other incidents, have there not, Mr. Deakins, concerning custody order cases? Scenes, Mr. Deakins, parents shouting abuse at one another in the foyer and so on. I believe you've witnessed such things before.
It's an emotional thing, isn't it?
Did you know that Mr. and Mrs. Tate had been in the clerk's office before the alleged kidnapping or after?
Well, before, when they first arrived. They gave me their name and I directed them to the right office.
Later, when you heard this ruckus on the steps, what conclusion did you come to?
Oh, I didn't have to come to any conclusion. I saw what happened.
But you knew they were attending the court in order to keep custody of the baby. Presumably you had concluded that much.
Well, yes.
So it would not be so unreasonable for you to conclude that somebody was now trying to take that baby away from them.
I only know what I saw.
Which was what exactly?
This girl taking the baby.
You actually saw her take it?
Well, yes.
She simply walked up and snatched the baby out of Mrs. Tate's arms.
No, I didn't see her walking up, but what I saw was her taking the baby.
Oh, so she might have spoken to Mrs. Tate before she took it.
She might have, yes.
In fact, she might have had quite a conversation with her.
Well, not much of one. She'd only just that moment gone outside.
When the girl took the baby, Mrs. Tate promptly started screaming.
Yes?
Actually screaming.
Well, crying.
In anger. Well, earlier, Mr. Deakins, you were able to conclude that Mr. Tate was angry, so how did Mrs. Tate seem when this alleged snatch took place?
Upset. She seemed upset.
And she said, no, no, no.
Or words to that effect.
Mr. Deakins, there are no words to that effect. I mean, no means no, surely, just as yes means the opposite.
Yes.
Yes, she said no, or...
No, she said no.
Mr. Deakins, I'm going to put something else to you. Now, as you say, Mrs. Tate was standing outside the court with the baby. The defendant walked up to her and asked her for the baby, and Mrs. Tate, already in a nervous and vulnerable state of mind, surrendered the baby to her. Her distraught manner, which you witnessed, was the result of having to accept the inevitable. But she had to return the child to its rightful mother. Now, is it possible that what you saw could have tallied with these events?
Look, I only know what it seemed like.
But you would concede the possibility that it could have happened that way.
Answer the question if you can, Mr. Deakins.
I only know what I saw.
No further questions. Thank you, Mr. Deakins.
You are Keith Adam Tate, and you live at 22 Larkfield Estate, Fulchester.
Yes,
And you are a quantity surveyor in the Borough Surveyors Department of Fulchester County Council, is that right?
that's right, yeah.
Mr. Tate, how long have you been married?
9 years, give or take?
And are there any children as a result of that marriage?
No.
Would you now tell the court what your relationship is with the baby, Michelle Jean Tate?
I'm a father.
Her natural father.
Yes.
Would you please tell the court who her mother is?
Carol Gibbs.
The baby is how old now, exactly?
2 months, my lord.
And 3 weeks.
Thank you. Carry on, Mrs. Forrest.
Mr. Tate, you say there are no children as a result of your marriage. Why is that?
Right, just sort of didn't happen.
And when none were forthcoming, what did you do?
I went to the quack. We went to the doctor.
And you've been trying for how long by then?
2 years, on and off.
And his advice?
Keep trying.
And how long did you keep trying?
Another year, maybe 2.
And then?
Then we went back, and he sent us off for tests at the hospital.
My lord, you will see before you medical data substantiating this evidence.
These were fertility tests, presumably?
Yes.
What was the result?
Well, nothing. There was no physical reason for it. It was just a chemical reaction between the two of us. It's just one of those things. He told us to keep trying.
And did you?
Well, for all the good it did us.
For how much longer?
2 years.
So all in all, you've been trying for a total of 6 years for a child with no result.
Yes, that's right.
How did this affect you, you and your wife, the lack of children?
Well, we got very down about it. I mean, wanted them. I mean, we had everything set up for them, house, garden, everything.
Well, how did your wife take it specifically?
She blamed herself. Yes, she blamed herself, said it was all her fault. She said if I got married to somebody else, we could have had kids by now, you know, that sort of thing.
So she irrationally blamed herself, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, she wouldn't go out. She just moped about indoors all day, wouldn't leave the house. Sometimes she wouldn't even get out of bed. So I sent her back to the doctor. And he gave her some pills, some tranquilizer.
She needed calming down.
No, she needed a kid.
Mr. Tate, if a child was so important to you as you claim it was, did you never consider adoption?
Oh, sure, yeah, we talked about it. Didn't fancy it. I mean, not bringing up someone else's child, not knowing who the father is, the parents are, where it comes from. No, we didn't take to that.
How did you first come to meet the defendant, Carol Gibbs?
Well, her mother was a close friend of Jean's. That's my wife. Well, she had Carol when she was just a kid herself. And then she got married, went to live in Rhodesia. And when things got rough, they sent her back here. She went to art college, and sometimes she used to come down and stay with us.
Well, how often is sometimes?
Well, she used to come down for the odd weekend, whenever she needed a bed or a bath. She called it cashing in on Jean's friendship with her mother. Her words, not mine. She admitted it, though. Thought it was a joke, bit of a laugh.
So she was a fairly regular guest in your house?
Yeah.
And how did you feel about that, about this cashing in?
Well, it annoyed me at first, but Jean was fond of her. I mean, it was good for her, someone to talk to. I mean, she was a bit of a laugh, too. Told us these stories about people she'd met, what she'd been up to. She was good at telling stories, even then.
Did either of you confide your disappointment in her over your lack of children?
Well, she was around when we were having tests. I mean, we didn't hide it. Christ, we all live in the same house together.
And what was her reaction?
Sympathetic, understanding.
There was a particular time when the defendant stayed with you when the subject was discussed in some detail, considerable detail.
Well, we discussed it lots of times.
But this one time an idea was mooted, was it not?
Yeah.
Would you tell the court about it?
Yeah, well, Carol was stopping over with us. She'd been sick, and Jean was nursing her. We thought she'd had pleurisy. Well, that's what she said she'd had. Anyway, when the doctor came over, it came out she had this abortion. Well, Jean took it badly. I mean, really badly. She said that if Carol was any sort of friend, she would have had the kid and let us keep it.
And what did the defendant say?
Well, she dismissed it. We both did. Jean was very upset.
But you did discuss it again.
Well, it turned into a bit of a joke. You know how these things do.
A joke? The idea of privately adopting some future child of the defendant?
Well, not exactly, no.
Well, what then?
Well, the fact that one day Carol should bear my child.
You say it was agreed between you, albeit half seriously, that one day the defendant should bear your child.
That's right, yeah.
When did this idea become serious? When did you decide to put it into practice?
Well, I didn't.
Mr. Tate, if, as you claim, you are the natural father and the defendant is the mother, it stands to reason that one of you must have decided to put it into practice.
Yeah, one of us did. Jean.
Your wife?
Yeah.
Perhaps you'd like to tell the court exactly how that came about, Mr. Tate.
Yeah, well, Carol was round one Saturday night and we were playing Scrabble, Carol and me. And Jean was just sitting on the sofa watching us, and then she came out with it.
And said what?
Well, that maybe we should stop treating it as a joke, maybe it was a way to solve all of our problems.
The problem of your childlessness.
Yeah.
You said problems, plural. Did the defendant have a problem as well?
Oh, yeah, she was up to her eyes in debt. Up to her eyes in it. Friends, landlord, fees for the college. I mean, she used to spend money like there was no tomorrow. Taxes everywhere. Booze, clothes, fags, you know, the original good time girl. But she was afraid that her parents would get wind of it and she'd be sent back home, back to Rhodesia.
She didn't want to go back?
Oh, no way, no, she hated it there, hated it. Apparently she didn't get on too well with her stepfather.
Yes, but how exactly was your wife's suggestion going to solve the problem of her returning?
Well, Jean said that Carol got pregnant by me, she could come and live with us. Take a couple of terms off college. Meantime, we'd pay off her debts and look after her while she was carrying it. You know, clothe her and feed her.
In return for what?
Well, letting us keep the baby. Registering me as a father and letting us have custody of it.
And did the defendant agree to all this?
Well, she just shrugged her shoulders and said, why not?
That's all?
Well, it was a way out, wasn't it? For all of us. Not the least for her.
And what about you?
Well, I wasn't too sure.
You were against the idea?
Yeah, I was at first, yeah, but... I mean, Jean went on and on. She said, at least this way we'd know that I'd be the father and we'd know who the mother was. Not like adoption, when you don't know either. Well, we sat up all night discussing it, arguing about it.
The three of you?
Well, Jean and me mainly.
And what decisions did you finally come to?
Well, I agreed to go along with it. Well, you know how things are when you have an idea in the middle of the night, a crazy idea, and it seems to solve everything. And in a way it did. So next month, Carol was pregnant.
Go on.
Well, it all went to plan. We lived together just as we had done when Carol came down for the weekends. I paid off her debts, gave her pocket money. I mean, I kept to our side to the letter.
This bargain, was it a verbal agreement?
No, it was just an arrangement between us. You know, we didn't write anything down.
These debts, how much did they add up to?
Well, getting on for £300 all told.
Oh, was it easy for you to find that amount of money?
No, it wasn't. No, I had to borrow on a credit card, use up all my savings. But that's what I said I'd do, so I did it.
When the child was born, what happened?
Well, it was born in Fulchester General, registered in my name. And then when it was time for Carol to be discharged, we went along to the hospital, picked up Michelle, and then we went our separate ways.
And then set about making the custody order inquiry.
Yeah, that's right.
During these intervening 3 weeks, after you had taken the baby home and made inquiries about the custody, were you aware of any change of heart from the defendant, any second thoughts on her part?
No, we never heard a word from her.
So
Not a word.
The first contact of any kind was at the magistrate's court on July 16?
Yeah, that is right.
Apart from that, nothing?
No.
One last thing, Mr. Tate. On your own initiative, you've recently taken a blood test, haven't you? In order that you shouldn't be excluded as a possible father of Michelle.
That is correct.
Is this Exhibit 3, Mrs. Forrest?
No, my lord, I'm referring to the routine blood test.
Well, in that case, perhaps the jury should be made aware that in such a test, it can never be proved that a certain man is the father of a certain child, only whether or not he could be.
Thank you, my lord. Now, in this instance, Michelle's blood group is O, and yours proved to be A, which means that on a physical basis of heredity, you cannot be eliminated as the father of Michelle.
My lord, surely Exhibit 3, the haematologist's report, is relevant at this point.
Mrs. Forrest?
I would like to pursue this point, my lord.
Very well. You will have your chance in cross-examination, Mr. Lee.
So, on a physical basis of heredity, you cannot be eliminated as the father of Michelle. That is correct, isn't it?
Well, so the doctor said, yeah.
Mr. Tate, in taking that blood test, you could in fact have been taking a risk, couldn't you? Well, if you aren't Michelle's father, then everything you've told us here today is untrue.
No, there was no risk involved. I knew I was the father and the test couldn't disprove it.
Thank you.
Mr. Tate, do you know how many major blood groups there are, all told?
4.
You've done your homework. Now, if the baby in question is blood group O, did you also know that any one of 3 of those 4 major blood groups could indicate a basis of heredity?
So?
So the risk wasn't really that great, was it? Because in the event, you stood a very good chance of proving your point. Can the witness be shown Exhibit 3, please, the haematologist's report? Now, this confirms, does it not, that in fact the child is too young to draw any conclusions from tissue typing and that the blood characteristics of mother and child are too similar for a positive conclusion to be drawn regarding paternity?
Is that a fact?
The fact in question, Mr. Tate, is that it is impossible to prove who the father is. Now, let us go back, if we may. You say it was 2 years before your wife first consulted a doctor and talked about her childlessness?
Yeah.
Why wait 2 years? Why not go sooner, after 1 year or 6 months? But your wife had already been to see him, hadn't she, independently. In fact, she'd been to see him a year previously, so apparently she didn't want to put it off.
Well, always going to see the doctor about something.
But on this occasion, she went to see him specifically about arranging fertility tests, did she not? She confided as much to my client. Yet apparently it took her a further year to persuade you to go and see him for the same purpose.
Yeah, well, I thought she's been too hasty. Jumping the gun. I mean, nobody likes having tests, do they? Not if they don't have to.
In other words, you were afraid you might fail, that they might prove the fault lay in you.
Well, what man wouldn't be?
Now, you say the idea of adoption didn't appeal to you.
No.
No, it didn't, or no, that's not what you said.
No, it didn't appeal.
Who brought up the subject initially, you or your wife?
My wife.
Presumably she must have been entertaining the idea then, even to want to discuss it.
Look, she felt the same way as I did, the same way.
Well, if your wife was so adamantly against adoption, Mr. Tate, why did she acquiesce, even engineer a situation which would ultimately mean adopting a child of the defendant?
Because she'd know I'd be the father.
But she wouldn't be the mother.
Yep. She didn't feel like that. I told you, she blamed herself for not having kids.
It doesn't seem to make a great deal of sense, Mr. Tate. What does make sense, however, is that your wife was anxious to adopt, but you weren't, because your pride wouldn't entertain you bringing up the child of another man.
Rubbish!
Now, during the 3 years while you were trying for a baby, you say your wife was very depressed, that she wouldn't go out and so on.
Yeah?
And this depression stemmed solely from the fact that you had no children, presumably?
Yeah.
What did you try and do to alleviate the depression, personally?
Well, sent her back to the doctor, didn't I?
I mean, apart from that. Well, if someone is depressed about something specific, it's often a very good idea to try and distract them, isn't it? To take them out of themselves, in fact, simply just to take them out.
Well, I did take her out.
Just said she wouldn't go out.
Look, I asked her if she wanted to go. She said no.
So what did you do?
Eh?
Well, did you stay in with her, keep her company?
Most of the time, yeah.
But in fact, you did find some time to go down to the local pub, did you not? In fact, you went down there most nights, leaving your wife alone.
Yeah, why not?
In other words, Mr. Tate, you put the interests of your social life before those of your wife.
I didn't say that.
In fact, Mr. Tate, it's hard to know what you are saying. You say you went to all these extremes to provide your wife with a child, and yet you couldn't stay in the house with her to keep her company when she needed it most?
It wouldn't have done any good. If I'd stayed in every night of the week, it wouldn't have made any difference. All she wanted was a kid.
Mr. Tate, when the defendant first stayed with you and your wife, you say you resented her. But she was company for your wife, if nothing else. At least you were able to go down to the pub with a clear conscience.
Yeah, well, I didn't go out when Carol came round.
Why not? Were you attracted to her?
No.
So you never made any advances to her, sexual advances?
No, I didn't.
She will maintain that you did, Mr. Tate, that on several occasions you made overt sexual overtures to her which she rebuffed.
Well, she'd be lying then, wouldn't she? I didn't think of her in that way.
An attractive young girl becomes a frequent visitor to your home when, by your own admission, your marriage is going through a difficult and stressful period, and it never occurred to you to think of her in a sexual context. You are made of stern stuff, Mr. Tate. Where was Mrs. Tate supposed to be when the consummation of this plan took place?
In bed.
And you and the defendant?
The room next door, the one that Carol used.
Which is where, exactly, in relation to your own bedroom?
Next door!
It didn't occur to you that it was a rather painful experience to put your wife through, even though it might have been her idea originally, to make love to another woman with her in the room immediately next door?
She wanted it that way. She suggested it. I told you it was a crazy idea.
Yes, I put it to you that this crazy idea you claim the defendant agreed to so willingly is nothing more than a calculated fabrication to give you a claim over the defendant's child, and that when she went into the bedroom, and when you went into her bedroom that night and put this idea to her, she rejected it out of hand, knowing it to be a ruse to get you to sleep with her with the consent of your wife. She registered you as the father of the child because she was continually harassed and goaded by you into doing so, just as you attempted repeatedly harassing her into your bed, attempts which she repeatedly rejected.
Rejected? I didn't have to ask her twice, believe you me.
According to your evidence, Mr. Tate, you didn't have to ask at all. Your wife did the asking on your behalf.
Join us again tomorrow when the case of the Queen against Carol Gibbs will be continued in the Crown Court. Today at Fulchester Crown Court, Carol Gibbs is accused of unlawfully carrying off Michelle Tate against the will of her father, Keith Tate. Mrs. Tate has just entered the witness box. The case you are about to see is a fictional one, but the procedure is legally accurate. The characters are played by actors, but the jury is selected from members of the general public.
Some personal questions, Mrs. Tate, if you can bear with us. Your husband's already told us something of your problems over your childlessness. When exactly did you first see the doctor about it?
1974. September, I think.
Did you go alone or with your husband?
With my husband.
And until that time, you'd never visited the doctor independently to discuss the problem with him?
No. Well, not specifically.
How do you mean, Mrs. Tate, not specifically?
Well, I used to see the doctor about my migraine. And once when I was there, he asked me if there was anything troubling me, anything on my mind. And I told him that we'd been trying for a baby and that nothing had happened.
And what did he advise?
He said that it was early days and worrying didn't help.
Did you tell your husband about this conversation?
Yes.
How did he react?
React?
Well, did he resist the idea of perhaps going to see the doctor himself?
Well, he just thought we should wait a bit.
Later, when you finally decided to go together to the doctor's, did you have to persuade your husband into it, or did he agree readily?
He agreed.
And you jointly underwent fertility tests at the Fulchester General?
Yes.
Tests which ultimately cleared you both?
Yes.
Mrs. Tate, your husband has told us that despite the result of these tests, you insisted on blaming yourself for remaining childless. Is that true?
Yes.
Well, why is that?
Just try and answer the best you can, Mrs. Tate.
I felt it was something in me, that it was my fault. Well, we really wanted children, and if you like, I felt it was my job to provide them. And when nothing happened, I felt I'd let him down.
By him, you mean your husband. In short, you felt you'd failed him.
Yes.
Did you discuss this with him?
Yes.
What did he say?
He said that I was overreacting.
But he was sympathetic.
Yes.
Mrs. Tate, we've heard that during this period, your husband often used to go out at night, down to the pub, leaving you alone.
Sometimes, yes.
Well, did you object to that, to being left alone?
We've always been different in that way. Keith has always been more extrovert. He's always liked going out.
So you didn't mind him going?
Why should I?
He didn't try to encourage you to go with him or have friends round?
He knew it was pointless. We both did.
Pointless in what way, Mrs. Tate?
Well, people always end up talking about the same thing, don't they? Sooner or later, they always end up talking about their children.
And it used to upset you?
Yes.
By serving as a reminder to what you saw as a failure to have one of your own?
Yes.
Perhaps we could move on now to your relationship with the accused, Carol Gibb. We've heard the defendant described as cashing in on your relationship with her mother. You didn't share that view?
Well, that was just Carol. She liked to say things like that, to shock. She was only 18.
Oh, hardly more than a child herself.
No.
And is that how you regarded her, as a child?
At first, perhaps. She was new to the country. I was a kind of big sister to her.
Oh, it was that close a relationship between you both?
For a time. Very close.
Did you confide in her about your feelings over being childless?
Well, yes. We used to talk about it a lot. She used to encourage me to talk about it.
And what was her advice, if any?
She said that I felt so badly because I had too much time to brood about it, being alone at home all day. And other things as well.
Like what?
About how society made women feel they'd failed if they couldn't have children. How in advertisements and magazines you always see women in the context of the family, as a mother, as if that was the only goal that we should all be aiming for. She was very articulate about it.
Apparently. And did you agree with her?
Up to a point. When she'd explain it, I'd know that she was right, that I had nothing to feel a failure about. But then she'd go away and it would all be the same again.
In other words, you'd get depressed again.
Yes.
Mrs. Tate, when the defendant came to stay with you after her abortion, You suggested, did you not, that she should have had the child and given it to you and your husband, that if she was any sort of friend, that's what she would have done.
I was upset. Yes, I might have said something like that.
And from that remark, an idea emerged, did it not? That one day the defendant should bear a child on your behalf for you to bring up, and your husband should be the father.
Yes.
Who suggested this?
I'm sorry?
Who originally brought it up as a serious suggestion?
I don't remember. I did, I think. Well, it was the only way that I could see that I'd ever get a child. It was the only way.
Mrs. Tate, are you telling us that you were so anxious for a baby that you were prepared, even encouraged your husband to have sexual intercourse with the defendant in order that she could conceive a child on your behalf?
Yes. But not just to have a child for the sake of it.
Oh, what then? You must answer my question, Mrs. Tate. If it wasn't for the sake of having a child, was it perhaps for the sake of your marriage?
Trying for a child like that, month after month, year after year, you can't possibly know what it's like unless you've gone through it. Oh, it's not just the sex. That just becomes a means to an end, but the waiting, counting the days to see if this time you're going to be lucky. And then when nothing happens, the knowing that you've got to start all over again. I just wanted to put a stop to it. I just wanted to put a stop to it.
When you are ready, Mrs. Tate.
I'm sorry.
When you first put this idea seriously to the defendant, that she should bear your husband's child, what did she say?
She agreed.
So she expressed no doubts, no hesitation about it whatsoever?
No, she accepted it.
So as far as you were concerned, all three of you were going ahead with your scheme as planned and agreed between you. No one was having any second thoughts.
No.
And the defendant made no effort to contact you after you had taken the baby home with you?
None.
So I would be right in saying that the first contact you had with the defendant after taking Michelle home was at the magistrate's court on July 16th?
Yes.
Would you tell us exactly what happened on that day?
Well, we'd just come out of the court. Keith had gone to get a taxi, and I was waiting for him, holding Michelle. Carol suddenly appeared behind me and tapped me on the shoulder.
Did she say anything?
No. She just tapped me on the shoulder, and as I turned round, she took Michelle out of my arms and ran off down the steps with her.
And at no time did she ask permission to take the baby? She simply took her and ran off?
Yes.
Mrs. Tate, one final question. You have described to the court what the lack of children meant to you and your husband and to your marriage, and the quite drastic measures you were prepared to go to in order to get a child. When you actually took the baby home, did it change things?
Oh, yes. Yes, it did.
Will you tell us how?
Well, what does any baby mean to somebody that's waited for one as long as I have? She was someone for me to love and someone to love me in return.
Thank you.
Mrs. Tate, you say having a baby meant that you had someone to love. Did you feel unloved then?
I was talking about the love of a child, that's all.
Oh, so you weren't referring to your husband?
No.
If having a baby was so important to you, did you never consider adopting one, Mrs. Tate?
We just didn't think it would suit us.
You say we. It was a joint decision then?
Yes.
Mrs. Tate, isn't it a fact that you were anxious to adopt, but that your husband wasn't, that he wouldn't hear of it?
No. It was a joint decision, I told you.
But you did once confide to the defendant, did you not, during one of her visits, that you would like to approach an adoption agency, but that your husband wouldn't let you?
It wasn't that he wouldn't let me. He just has very strong feelings on the subject.
Around this time, Mrs. Tate, when the possibility of adoption was or wasn't being discussed, you were under the care of your doctor, were you not, for depression?
Yes.
And isn't it right that it was he who suggested you consider adoption, and when this idea was quashed by your husband and your depression increased, he suggested you should see a psychiatrist or even a marriage guidance counsellor?
Yes.
Did you discuss these suggestions with your husband?
Yes.
And what was his reaction?
He said that the doctor was making too much of it, that things weren't really that bad.
But in fact, they were that bad, weren't they, Mrs. Tate? In fact, you were in a very severe state of depression. You were even beginning to show the first signs of agoraphobia, in that you could hardly leave the house, and yet your husband maintained things weren't that bad.
He thought I'd snap out of it.
Mrs. Tate, isn't it also a fact that around this time the defendant suggested you should get a job to distract you from your problems and get you out of the house?
Yes.
What did your husband say to that?
He felt that I wasn't well enough, that I'd be better off at home.
In other words, it was your place to stay at home.
My lord, he's putting words into the witness's mouth.
Yes. If you could confine your conclusions to your summing up, Mr. Lee, I'd be most grateful.
Your Lordship, please. So, to recap, we have a situation where you were gravely depressed because you had no children. Despite this, your husband wouldn't consider adoption, and when this increased your depression, he would not consider your seeking specialist help or getting a job.
It was my decision as well. I had some say in it.
I'm sure you did, Mrs. Tate. But it is nonetheless true that none of these steps were actually taken, were they, to the further detriment of your health?
I suppose so.
Yet you still describe your husband's attitude towards you at this time as one of concern. You are quite sure that's the adjective you wish to use.
He did what he felt best.
Let us now move on to your relationship with the defendant, which you describe as very close, correct?
Yes.
Would you describe your husband's relationship with her as equally close?
If you mean did they get on, yes.
Mrs. Tate, the defendant had occasion, did she not, to tell you at least once that she felt she couldn't continue visiting you because of your husband's continued sexual advances to her in your presence, and that she felt these advances were humiliating and embarrassing to you both?
That was Carol. Keith was fond of her. She was reading things into it. I told her. They didn't mean anything.
So any demonstrations of affection towards her, putting his arm around her while watching television and so on, didn't disturb you?
I didn't even think about them.
You say your husband frequently put his arms around an attractive young girl and you didn't think about it?
No, I didn't.
Oh. When the prosecution asked you who originally suggested that the defendant should bear a child on your behalf, you replied, I did, I think. Aren't you sure?
Yes.
Exactly where and how did this suggestion take place?
I suggested it to my husband.
Oh, so the defendant wasn't present when you first made the suggestion?
Yes.
Ah.
Oh, no. It just happened. I think we talked about it first and then we discussed it with Carol. I think that's how it happened.
Let me suggest another way it could have happened, Mrs. Tate. I suggest it was your husband who actually put the idea to you. And then later, when your husband's approaches were rejected by the defendant and she subsequently became pregnant by another man, your husband, angered and humiliated by his rejection by her, talked you into backing him to substantiate his claim over her child. Isn't that how it really happened, Mrs. Tate?
No, it isn't. I was there in the house when it happened.
The defendant will say that when he went into her room and put this scheme to her, she rejected it out of hand.
No, she didn't.
With respect, Mrs. Tate, since you weren't actually in the room with them, you can't be absolutely sure what happened between them, can you?
Yes, I can. I could hear them. I was lying in bed and I could hear them. Do you think I'd make something like that up if it wasn't true?
Mrs. Tate, when the defendant took Michelle from you that day, what did she say?
She didn't say anything.
She will maintain that she did, Mrs. Tate, that she asked you, for the sake of the baby, to stop this silly charade and return the child to her, which you then did.
She took her grabbed her out of my arms without a word.
But surely you tried to resist her, if only verbally.
I did. I shouted after her.
Mrs. Tate, isn't it a fact that you felt it was inevitable that the defendant would want her baby back, which is why you were anxious to make an application as soon as possible, and when she asked you for the baby, you knew you had to return her, which you then did?
No, no.
You say the defendant once remarked to you during her pregnancy that she hoped you were all doing the right thing. What did you take that remark to mean?
What it says.
That she had doubts about this scheme of yours.
Oh, it's just one of those things you say, isn't it? It doesn't have to have a meaning.
So you ignored it?
It didn't seem very important.
How were things between you and the defendant at this time, around the time of her pregnancy?
All right. Well, it's not always easy, is it? Three people living together in a small house.
Mrs. Tate, isn't it true that you and your husband wouldn't allow the defendant out of the house towards the end of her pregnancy?
No.
And that when she asked to see her boyfriend, Robert Ainsworth, who she will claim is the father of her child, you wouldn't permit it?
But she never asked to see him. She never asked to see anybody.
What, nobody at all?
No.
An attractive young girl suddenly drops out of sight for 9 months, and not one of her friends tries to get in touch with her, come and see her?
That was the way we'd agreed it should be.
Ah.
So that there'd be no awkward explanation.
Don't you mean that's the way you and your husband agreed it should be because you were afraid the rightful father might turn up and make a prior claim on the child?
My husband is the rightful father.
Even supposing your story to be true, Mrs. Tate, it is possible that the defendant had sexual relations with someone else immediately prior or after the alleged liaison with your husband. It is therefore equally possible that the child is the product of these other relations, isn't it?
She didn't even have a boyfriend at that time. That was one of the reasons she was staying with us. She often stayed with us when she was between boyfriends.
Did she actually tell you she didn't have a boyfriend, or did you just assume it on that basis?
When she did have a boyfriend, she talked about him. She was always full of it.
So, when she didn't talk about a particular boyfriend, you naturally assumed that she didn't have one?
Yes.
But that was just an assumption on your part, wasn't it? In fact, she could have had a boyfriend and simply not mentioned him. It is within the realms of possibility, isn't it?
Michelle is Keith's. She even looks like Keith.
Just answer the question, please, Mrs. Tate. Isn't it possible that the defendant could have had a boyfriend with whom she could equally possibly have been sleeping with around the same time as you allege your husband had sex with her?
You must answer the question, Mrs. Tate.
Yes. Yes, it is possible.
Thank you.
Mrs. Tate, you often visited the defendant at the hospital at the time of her confinement, did you not? During the day when your husband was at work?
Yes.
And on one of these visits, the registrar of the hospital, the registrar of births, made a routine stop by her bedside and asked if she decided on a name and if she wished to register her baby at that time.
Yes.
And who did she record as the father of Michelle?
Keith, my husband.
Miss Gibbs, we've heard how you came to be a frequent visitor at the Tates' home. Did you enjoy staying there?
It was somewhere to go at Christmas and things when other people went home.
And what were your feelings towards the Tates, towards Mrs. Tate in particular?
I felt sorry for her.
Why was that?
Because of the life she led. If you can call it a life.
Perhaps you'd care to amplify that remark.
Well, the way she was kept cooped up in that house all day, every day. No wonder she got so strung up about not having a kid. She had nothing else to think about, did she, to drive anyone mad?
By mad, you mean her depressions?
Yes.
Can we take it, then, that you blame Mr. Tate for her depressions?
He didn't exactly help her, did he? He wouldn't even let her get a part-time job, a crummy part-time job in a typing pool.
So you continued visiting them out of concern for her as much as anything else?
Yes. I hoped I could help her.
Help her in what way, exactly?
Come to her senses. See herself as an individual with her own needs, not just as a shadow of him.
A shadow of him. Can we take it, then, that you wouldn't describe the marriage as a particularly happy one?
Hardly.
Now, we've heard that you had reason to confide in Mrs. Tate about sexual advances made to you by her husband, and that these advances distressed and humiliated you.
Yes, he was always pawing me, touching me.
In the presence of his wife?
Whenever he got the chance.
You finally drew Mrs. Tate's attention to these advances in the hope of stopping them.
I was afraid she'd think I liked it, that I was encouraging him. But she was too loyal to him. She kept saying it was the way he was, affectionate. The fact that he was never affectionate like that with her never seemed to strike her.
We've heard that Mrs. Tate often confided in you her feelings about being childless. Is that true?
She hardly talked of anything else. She was obsessed by it. Obsessed.
Was Mr. Tate equally obsessed?
He wanted a kid, all right. But it had to be his own, a chip off the old block. That's why he wouldn't hear of adoption.
Did you ever discuss it with him, his feelings about adoption?
Yes. I told him he was being selfish. That if Jean didn't get a kid, I thought she'd go under. He said the subject was closed.
We've heard that Mrs. Tate described his attitude towards her at this time as one of concern. Is that a description that you would concur with?
No.
How would you describe his attitude?
Selfish, intolerant, and inconsiderate.
When you visited the Tates after your abortion in February 1906, Mrs. Tate suggested that you should have had the child and let her keep it, did she not?
Yes.
What did you say in response?
Nothing. I knew she was upset.
But according to the evidence of Mr. Tate, this did form the nucleus of the idea that one day you should bear his child, did it not? An idea that became a kind of joke between the three of you.
He might have thought of it as a joke.
You never took it seriously?
No. Look, the idea came up once in conversation, twice at the most, when we were discussing their problem about not having kids.
And when it came up, you dismissed it?
I didn't need to. It was never a serious suggestion.
Mrs. Tate didn't take the suggestion seriously either?
Neither of us did. It was just him talking.
In September of 1977, you had some financial problems, did you not?
Yes.
Could you outline what these problems were, please?
I was living on a student grant and I couldn't pay the rent. So I borrowed money off friends, and in the end I owed everyone money. You know how these things happen.
But you made no secret of this to the Tates.
Why should I?
But another suggestion was put to you, wasn't it, as to how you could pay off these debts?
Yes.
Would you tell us what it was, please?
Keith came into my room one night, late. He'd been drinking. He said he'd talked the matter over with Jean, and if I got pregnant by him, they'd pay off all my debts and look after me while I was carrying it, so long as I gave the kid to them to bring up.
And what did you reply?
I told him to stuff it. I knew it was just a way of getting me to sleep with him with Jean's consent, and it wouldn't wash.
What did he say to that?
Oh, he got angry, very angry. He said if I didn't agree to it, he'd personally write to my stepfather and tell him what I'd been up to, about the abortion and owing money and everything.
In other words, he tried to blackmail you?
Yes.
What was your response to these threats of blackmail?
It floored me. I couldn't believe he meant it. Then he started pawing at me again, pulling the bedclothes off me. So I said the only way he'd get me pregnant was by raping me. And the answer to Jean's problem wasn't so much a kid, but him getting out of her life.
Join us again tomorrow when the case of the Queen against Carol Gibbs will be concluded in the Crown Court. Today at Fulchester Crown Court, Carol Gibbs is accused of unlawfully carrying off Michelle Tate against the will of her father, Keith Tate. The case you are about to see is a fictional one, but the procedure is legally accurate. The characters are played by actors, but the jury is selected from members of the general public.
Miss Gibbs, on the morning after this particular night, when Mr. Tate came into your room and suggested you conceive a child on his wife's behalf in return for paying off your debts and so on, what did you do?
I cleared out fast.
To go where?
I went to stay with a friend, Robert Ainsworth.
So, what was your next contact with Mr. Tate?
About 2 months later. He came round to the art college. We went out for lunch.
What did he want?
He wanted to know why I hadn't been back to see them. I told him he knew damn well why. And in any case, I couldn't go back again now because I was pregnant.
And when you told Mr. Tate you were pregnant, what did he say?
He wanted to know who the father was. When I told him it was Bob, he got angry again. Called me a slut, amongst other things, then he walked out on me.
Was that your only contact with him?
No, he turned up again the next day. He wanted to know if I intended marrying Bob. I said no, we both felt we were too young to be tied down. He asked how I was going to manage alone with a baby. I said I didn't know, I hadn't thought that far ahead. He said he and Jean would be happy to look after it for me till I got clear of college and had a job. Then I could have it back.
What did you say?
I said I wanted to talk it over with Jean. I went out there that weekend and we all discussed it.
And decided what?
I decided to go along with it.
And when was it first decided that you should start living with the Tates?
More or less straight away.
And paying off your debts and so on. How did that come about?
I still wanted to get a job, but they both said no, not now I was pregnant. They said they'd better pay them off and I could pay them back later when I was working.
Miss Gibbs, did it ever strike you that they were being extraordinarily generous with all these efforts of help, that they might want something in return?
We were friends in spite of everything. And I thought if they looked after the baby, got to know her, they might think again about adoption. At least Keith might. Be a kind of tryout for him to see how he felt about looking after someone else's baby.
So you felt that they would have something quite tangible to gain from it in return?
Yes, I did.
And it was on that basis that you commenced living with them during your pregnancy?
Yes.
And how did that go? All three of you living together?
Fine at first. We got on fine. Then they started this endless fussing. Whenever I wanted to go out, they'd start on about all they were doing for me, how all they wanted was for me to look after myself and the baby. So I gave in. Who wouldn't under the weight of all that self-sacrifice?
Well, in fact, you were in perfectly good health, quite able to go out.
Of course. Being pregnant doesn't make you into an invalid, contrary to popular opinion.
If it was that strain between you, Miss Gibbs, how was it that you came to register Keith Tate as the father of the child?
I didn't. Not then.
Nevertheless, you did agree to it eventually.
But only after I'd had her, at the hospital. Every time they visited me, they kept on about how they'd like to carry on helping me as she was growing up, financially, like godparents. How if I was to put down Keith as the father, it would mean it was binding between us, that sort of thing.
How would you describe your state of mind when they were discussing this subject with you?
I just had a baby. I was exhausted. In the end, it seemed easier to agree so we could drop it.
In other words, you didn't have the strength to fight them?
No.
And you consented to letting them take the baby home with them for the same reason?
Yes. Then later, when I contacted them, I said I'd like to come and see Michelle. They kept saying how it was inconvenient. They were just going out or they had people there. It was just one excuse after another.
How many attempts did you make to see Michelle?
Half a dozen.
So, despite your repeated attempts to maintain contact with your daughter, these attempts were effectively thwarted by the Tates?
Yes.
So, what did you do?
I borrowed a friend's car and went round there early one morning to have it out with them. When I arrived, they were just driving off in a taxi, so I followed them. They drove into town and stopped outside the magistrate's court. Then I twigged what they were up to. They were after getting custody of Michelle. Finally, I saw Jean coming out holding Michelle, so I went up to her and I said, "She's my baby and I want her." Okay. And she gave her to me.
She voluntarily surrendered the baby to you?
Yes. She was upset. I expected that, but she knew the score. She knew she had to in the end.
And you took the baby home with you?
No. I was afraid they'd follow and make a scene. I didn't know where to take her. In the end, I went to see a social worker friend. She said she'd help arrange temporary foster parents till I got things sorted.
Sorted in what sense, Miss Gibbs?
Till I found somewhere else to live. Somewhere they couldn't find me.
Sorry, and that's where the baby is now, with foster parents?
Yes.
Miss Gibbs, there was another alternative open to you, was there not, towards the... well, in the earlier stages of your pregnancy, which would not only have solved the problem of your pregnancy, but enabled you to get a job, pay off your debts, and return to college?
Sure. I could have another abortion.
Why didn't you?
Because I wanted to have the baby.
Thank you.
Miss Gibbs, you say in the past, when you used to visit the Tates, Mr. Tate repeatedly made sexual advances to you.
That's right.
Advances which you found humiliating and embarrassing to both you and Mrs. Tate.
Yes.
Why then didn't you simply stop visiting them? That would have effectively stopped both the advances and your embarrassment, would it not?
They were no big deal. I knew how to handle him.
Oh, so they weren't as embarrassing and humiliating as all that, since you knew how to handle him so well.
I meant I just put up with it.
We can take it that you didn't find him attractive then.
Keith, no.
Well, it's not such a remote possibility, surely. By most people's definitions, he's a very attractive, presentable man.
He's also a chauvinist.
That doesn't necessarily rule out physical attraction, does it?
As far as I'm concerned, it does.
Because it conflicts with your beliefs in women's rights.
Amongst other things.
Which is presumably why you are happy to advise and help Mrs. Tate, telling her that she could get a job and stop living in the shadow of her husband and the rest?
Yes, and because I was fond of her. I didn't like seeing her so depressed.
Perhaps oppressed is more the word you had in mind. Now, you say you didn't want to consider abortion, even in spite of your financial difficulties and the fact that it might put your career at risk. You'd previously had one abortion already, so you clearly had no moral objection to it.
Yes, even in spite of all that.
May one ask why?
Why climb Everest? Because it was there and I wanted to go through with it.
Well, a slightly more logical explanation would be that you had a definite enticement to have the child, that you had been offered the very tangible rewards the Tates have outlined for us.
No.
Well, nevertheless, you did accept some of these rewards, didn't you? You did allow them to pay off your debts and look after you during your pregnancy.
Yes, but they weren't as rewards. They were just as...
Yes?
Gestures.
Gestures?
Of friendship.
And very generous gestures of friendship, Miss Gibbs. Quite extraordinarily generous in the circumstances.
They were going to get something in return. I was going to pay them back.
Oh, when? When exactly did you hope to get this money together to pay them back?
When I left college and had a job.
Miss Gibbs, would you describe the Tates as being financially well off?
I never really thought about it.
Well, would you think about it now, please?
Not particularly, I suppose.
And in the light of that, and your adverse feelings about Mr. Tate, you still felt able to accept these large sums of money without any specific time limit on when they should be paid back?
It was the way they wanted it. They wanted to help.
And even when you were put under this alleged pressure to register Keith Tate as the father of your child, you still didn't seriously question their motives? You still believed they wanted to help?
Yes.
Well, wasn't that rather naive?
They said they wanted to help. I believed them.
Nevertheless, the welfare of your child was at stake, a child you were apparently very anxious to have. But you didn't think to examine the possible consequences of such extraordinarily altruistic offers?
No.
Well, perhaps naive isn't so much the word, Miss Gibbs, as irresponsible. Didn't it occur to you that they would have formed a strong emotional bond with the baby by the time you were ready to collect her, that it would be almost impossible to surrender her?
They said they could handle it.
Well, what about the emotional bonding you were to miss out on? The first few months of life are vital in the relationship between a mother and her child. Didn't it worry you that you weren't going to provide that for your own child?
The idea was that I'd see the baby, keep in contact with her, so there'd still be some kind of bond. How was I to know they'd stop me?
These thwarted attempts you made to see your child. You say you made 6 in all.
About that.
Well, surely you could have been a bit more strenuous in your efforts, Miss Gibbs. If you really wanted to see your child as much as you say, surely you could have simply sat on their doorstep until they let you in, or even involved the police, come to that.
I thought they'd come round.
The baby is now being looked after by foster parents, is that right?
Yes.
How many times have you been to see her?
I haven't.
You haven't.
I wanted to see how it went in court. Make sure I'd get cleared, then get custody. I didn't want her getting too attached to me, then not seeing me for God knows how long.
Oh, but you were prepared to let her get attached to Mrs. Tate and then take her away?
That was different.
In terms of the emotional attachment of a young baby, I'd say it was remarkably similar, Miss Gibbs. Well, let's turn once again to this question of the registering of Mr. Tate as the father of Michelle. You say these alleged attempts at persuasion only took place after the baby was born, when you left the hospital.
Yes.
What did he say that was so persuasive?
He said it was in my interests and the baby's to give her his name, so I'd have legal redress on him if I got hard up and needed help.
He actually said that?
Yes.
But didn't that strike you as yet another extraordinary thing for somebody to say about a child which isn't theirs, to offer such a thing?
Look, I'd been in labour over 16 hours. I was tired and confused, and I couldn't see any harm in it.
On the contrary, Miss Gibbs, I suggest that any confusion on your part, any second thoughts happened after you left the hospital. That up until that time, you agreed to have the baby and hand it over to the Tates as planned. Which is why you agreed to staying with them during your pregnancy, and why you registered Keith Tate as the father, because he is the father just as he claims. Isn't that right?
I suppose you also believe that load of rubbish about him only doing it for Jean, in order to give her a baby.
Oh, are you now telling us that he did do it, that you did have sex with him?
No, I'm not. I'm saying how could anyone believe his reasons for wanting it, that's all.
Well, we're not examining his motives at the moment, Miss Gibbs. We're examining yours. You said that on the morning of July 16th, you went to the Tates' home in order to have a showdown with them.
Yes.
Isn't it actually true that you went to their house that day with the express intention of taking Michelle, whether they liked it or not, and when you saw them driving off, you followed them in order to have an opportunity later?
No.
Well, in that case, when you saw them go into the magistrate's court, why, and you say you twigged what they were up to, why didn't you go in as well? State your case.
What chance would I have stood? Who would have listened to me?
Oh, so you decided to simply take the baby instead?
No, I've already said I asked Jean for her and she gave her to me.
And then you drove her round to your social worker friend who arranged care for her?
Yes.
And since then you haven't seen her?
No.
No. Oh, let's go back a moment, Miss Gibbs, to the time you were staying with the Tates during your pregnancy. You say things were rather strained between you.
Yes, they were.
So why didn't you simply leave?
To go where?
If things were that strained, surely anywhere would have been preferable.
I thought I should stick it out.
Exactly. You thought you should stick it out because you wanted them to pay off your debts. And you thought if you didn't stick to your end of the agreement, they wouldn't stick to theirs. But after you left hospital and your debts were paid, you thought you were safe, didn't you? So you deliberately went back on the agreement between you and took the baby without the consent of her father.
In your right hand and read aloud the words on this card.
I swear by Almighty God, the evidence I shall give you the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Mr. Ainsworth, tell me, how did you first come to meet the defendant?
At college. I'm in the year below.
And how long had you been going out together prior to her pregnancy?
Just over a year, off and on.
The term off and on seems to cover a multitude of variables. Can I ask what you take it to mean, Mr. Ainsworth?
Well, it was pretty casual. Sometimes we didn't see each other for a few weeks and then we'd get back together again, you know?
But you had what could be called an ongoing relationship for over a year.
Yeah.
And we can take it, can we, that this relationship was not a purely platonic one?
No, it wasn't.
Mr. Ainsworth, after the defendant left the Tates, the morning after Mr. Tate put his proposal about her conceiving a child for him, she came to stay with you, did she not?
Yeah, she did.
How long did she stay with you?
2 months, until she went back to them, to the Tates.
And it was during these 2 months that you say the baby was conceived?
Yeah.
What steps did you decide to take?
I asked her if she wanted to get married. She said no, we were too young. Said she wanted to have the baby, and I said I'd do what I could to help her out.
What, financially?
Yeah, except it wouldn't amount to much. I was still on a grant myself.
When the defendant decided to go and live with the Tates during her pregnancy and take them up on their offer of help, of looking after the baby until she'd finished college, how did you react?
I asked her if she was sure that was what she wanted after what had happened between them. She said yeah. Well, it was her who had to have the kid, wasn't it? So it was her decision.
Mr. Ainsworth, you regularly donate blood, do you not, at a mobile donor centre which visits your college?
I do, yeah.
And what does the blood card they've issued you with indicate as your blood type,
I'm Group O.
My lord, I think this should be marked as an exhibit.
Yes, Mr. Lee.
Group O is the same group of that of Michelle's. So, like Mr. Tate, Mr. Ainsworth, you fall within the same range of major blood groups which does not exclude paternity on a physical basis of heredity.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. I think we all appreciate the point you're trying to make.
One final question, Mr. Ainsworth. When you learnt that the defendant was pregnant, was abortion ever discussed between you?
It came up, yeah, but she said she wasn't going to go through that again, that this time she wanted to have it.
She was quite resolved in her desire to have the child.
Yeah, she was.
Thank you, Mr. Ainsworth. If you could remain where you are, please, Mr. Ainsworth.
Mr. Ainsworth, did you actually want to have a child with the defendant?
We didn't plan it, no.
So when you discovered she was pregnant, what was your reaction?
I was concerned.
Concerned enough to offer marriage?
Yeah.
A very responsible attitude which goes hand in hand with your being a blood donor. Except that somewhere along the line, this sense of responsibility seems to have diminished, doesn't it? In that you agreed to her staying with the Tates, and that you allowed them not only to look after her during her pregnancy, but also to look after the child when it was born.
Well, he was in a position to do that. I wasn't.
But you claim to be the father. Doesn't it seem an odd way for such an apparently responsible young man to behave? To allow another man to do all that for his child?
I was at college. I couldn't do anything myself.
We've heard from the defendant how she planned to be reunited with her baby after she had left college and got a job. Where exactly did you fit into these plans?
How do you mean?
Well, didn't she try to include you as the father of the child?
I just didn't get round to discussing it.
No, well, I suggest you didn't get around to discussing it, Mr. Ainsworth, because there was nothing to discuss. Any relationship you had had with the accused was over long before she became pregnant, which is why you took no interest in the baby either before or after its birth. Isn't that right?
What was the point of discussing anything before it was born? Even Carol wasn't sure what she was going to do with it afterwards, so how could I have been involved in anything that happened to it?
Mr. Ainsworth, what exactly do you mean by even Carol wasn't sure what she was going to do with it afterwards?
Just that nothing had been finally settled for after the baby was born, one way or the other.
Mr. Ainsworth, are you now telling us that the defendant had no definite plans to keep the child?
No.
Well, just what are you telling us then? What exactly do you mean by one way or the other?
Just that she didn't have any definite plans, that's all.
But she has told us she was quite adamant on the point. She was to collect the child from the Tates when she had finished at the art college and found herself a job. If she didn't intend doing that, what did she intend doing? My lord, would you direct the witness to answer my question?
I only know what she told me.
Which was what exactly?
She was going to put it up for adoption. Well, why not? People are crying out for babies these days.
But if she intended putting it up for adoption all along, why not simply let the Tates privately adopt her?
Because she wasn't sure it would work out. That's why she agreed to let them look after it for the first few months, see how they all got on.
As a kind of trial?
In a way.
And were they aware of this, that they were on trial?
No, Carol thought it didn't seem fair to get their hopes up in case she changed her mind about it.
And did she?
Yeah. After the baby was born, she decided against it.
Why?
Well, because by then she'd lived with them for nearly 9 months, hadn't she?
Oh, well, that doesn't really answer my question.
Well, from what I can gather, that house was sterile in more ways than one. During the whole time she was there, she never had one conversation where she could exchange any views or opinions. Because the only person who had opinions in that house is him. And everybody else has to just sit there listening to him, ranting on about nignogs, as he calls them, or bringing back capital punishment, or any of his other favourite themes. Well, she wasn't about to condemn anybody to a lifetime of that, was she? Least of all her own kid.
Mr. Ainsworth, can you tell us why the defendant should deliberately mislead this court into believing she intended keeping her child, when she clearly never entertained the idea, never even considered it?
I suppose she knew what they'd think. That would make her seem. As if she was so cold-blooded she didn't give a damn about what happened to her own kid. She just didn't happen to think she'd make a very good mother. She wasn't cut out for it, that's all. But that doesn't necessarily mean she doesn't care about what happens to the baby, does it?
Members of the jury, the issues before you are probably simpler than they initially appear. On the one hand, the prosecution claims that Keith Tate is the father of the child in question, and that the defendant agreed to him having custody of that child in return for certain financial favors. On the other, the defense claims that he is not the father, and therefore has no legal claim on the child and was only caring for the child on a temporary basis, and that the defendant is not guilty of the charges. You have to decide, based on the evidence and facts you have heard in this courtroom, which of these two accounts you believe. You have heard that the defendant registered Mr. Tate as the father of her child. But the defendant now claims the declaration was false. If you believe her and accept that he has no rights over the child, then you must return a verdict of not guilty. If, on the other hand, you believe the prosecution account that, in fact, the paternity declaration on the birth certificate is accurate and that no permission was granted to the defendant to take the child in any event, then you must return a verdict of guilty. So the issues are for you to decide. Firstly, are you completely satisfied that Keith Tate is the father of Michelle? And secondly, at any time, was permission granted to the defendant to take her away? You may now retire and elect a foreman to speak on your behalf and consider your verdict.
All stand. Have you reached a verdict upon which you're all agreed?
Yes.
Do you find the defendant, Carol Gibbs, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
The cases in Fulchester Crown Court are fictitious, but the jury is composed of members of the general public.